Okay, 3800 Series 3 Buick V6, found in everything else with Buicks too, but at any rate, this is the coolant temperature sensor. It's kind of a little bit of a pain in the ass on this car, so as I'm ripping into it here, I figured I'd go ahead and make a video. So as you can see, I got the dust cover off, and this one's an 06 Grand Prix. It's not supercharged. I'm pretty sure the supercharged would have it in the same spot. There may be something else in the way, I don't know. But as you can see, I already took off my thermostat housing. That's two 10mm bolts. Well, the one further back is a 10mm bolt, and the one towards the front is it's a stud. And it's got a 10mm bolt on it, and then it also had a provision right here for the actual wiring part of the sensor, which I'll show you in case if you need to match that up when you're buying one from the store. But somehow I guess I lost mine. I don't know. That would either be 10 or 11 on top of the 10 or 11 that actually holds the thermostat housing down. But I'll show you that when I get it back together. So it's easier to start from here because I know exactly what you need to do. But mine's really corroded, but you could see it's right there. So if you got your wishbones, your dog bones, you're going to come right by the exhaust, and it's right there. So now, I tried a bunch of things. I tried crow's foots. I tried swivels. It's just really, really rough. I mean, the angle that they put it on, something's always in your way. So what I figured out, I think the real way to do it's to go ahead and take this exhaust piece off, which we all know isn't fun if you don't absolutely have to do it. Plus then you got to buy new exhaust gaskets and torch up the bolts 9 out of 10 times. And then if you torch them, you lose the heat treat, and then you need new bolts, and I don't know. Trying to keep it simple. So here's what I figured out. You can get to it pretty much with a 19mm wrench. It's 19mm, but when you use the wrench, you have just enough room to break it free, but the bolt that holds this bracket right here, you can kind of see it, the wishbone, the dog bone bracket, you got to take that one out right there. You don't have to, but it's going to be really difficult. You'll see what I mean when you go to do it. Like, you can loosen it, but then it's stuck. You know, you got to tighten it to get the wrench back off. Because even with that out of the way, I mean, you are maybe stepping the shit out of it the whole entire way. So, and then when the bolt comes to slide out, let me hold it up here. You can see how that, I needed to dent in the heat shield on that crossover pipe. However you want to do it. I just took one of my homemade breaker bars, this conduit, my little 3-pound, 5-pound sledgehammer, and I just kept working it until the bolt would come out. But, I mean, you'll see. Let me get the bolt back in there. You'll be able to see, like, you need one right there, and then you need to step it up, and then it comes out. But it's not coming out without doing that. And, it'd be nice to just take the whole bracket off. That would make it an easy job. But, and it's really hard to see in the lighting, that bolt right there, guess what? To get that out, this fucker needs to come out. The coolant temperature setting unit. So, or sensor. So I'm going to go ahead and, well, let me show you with the wrench. Where did I put my 19mm? Working in the dark here. I'm sure different wrenches will fit better, but you want it to curve up. Easier right-handed too. But there you go. That's going to be your fitment. And you can see how much play you got. You know, that way tightened it, of course. Loosen it. And I mean, even then, you got to kind of play with it to get it to where you're going to be able to, you know, get it to move back on. I would definitely suggest a 12-point. So you got, you know, more articulation around the bolt for your positioning. But you may need a 6-point to bust it free. If that thing's really corroded and really bad, mine looked pretty bad, but it actually broke pretty easily. So maybe you'll be that lucky. But I'd say break it with a 6-point wrench and then continue it with a 12. That would be ideal. So let me go ahead and get this one out, and I'll get the other one in. Okay, even with the 12-point wrench, it's real slow going, like I said. But you still get into situations where you just can't seem to get it to all line up. So here's what I figured out, okay? I'm using my 1/4-inch ratchet with a 1/4-inch to 3/8 adapter. And then, of course, my deep dish, which I do have to say, if you have, like, you know, an in-between size socket, you know, like a medium 19mm instead of a standard or a deep dish, it would be really helpful. Because, as you can see, when I get it on here, it doesn't really fit because everything hits the exhaust pipe. But because I'm able to get it on an angle, now that I've got it loose, I can use this to twist it to get it in position of my wrench. Now, I could probably do it this way and get it all the way out. My fear is I'm going to back my wrench up to where I'm not going to be able to get the tool out. That's what I think. And based on how that's positioned, I'm not going to get my finger down there to get it to tighten back up a little bit to be able to keep tightening it until I can get my tool out. So what I'm hoping here is after a few more spins, I can try to spin it by hand. Again, that's not very easy to see, but this is in a shitty position. Okay, I can do it by hand now. So I 12-pointed it until I got it loose enough that I could go ahead and have the socket all cockeyed with the deep dish, okay? Now I can come in here, and I got small hands. And there you go. And if you choose to do your drain your coolant ahead of time, good for you. I'm not. I'm just going to let the little bit drip out and then top it off, because that's the kind of mood I'm in right now. So let me go ahead and get the new one in. Okay, so here's my new one. Let me let you get a good look at what it looks like in case if you're buying it off eBay or Rock Auto and yeah, you can't really see in there, but it's 2 pins. Yeah, you can kind of see it now. It's a 2-pinner. Latches on this side. And that's another thing. You could barely get your hand in there, you know, to like pull the tab down and pull the harness off. And mine I think is original. I got 283,000 miles on mine, but it was so brittle that even with me doing that, it just effortlessly busted off all the plastic. So be ready for that to happen. That may or may not happen on yours. Mine was just so brittle. But it's nice. It comes with the coating, so you don't have to worry about Teflon taping it. So let's see if I can do this and try to record at the same time. So I'm going in on that angle right there. Feeling around for it. Not a lot of room. This would be easier without the camera too. But I'm going to try to do it with the camera. But I'm just going to try not to drop it. Do baby rotations until I get it to catch. You don't want it to cross thread, but it's a big enough fitting. You shouldn't worry about it cross threading too much. Am I on it? Hold on, let me make sure. I'm having a rough time here. Let me feel with my finger. Okay, I was a little bit too low. That might be easier with the left hand too, upside down. And then you get coolant on your fingers and it gets even more slippery. Yeah, sorry guys, I'm going to turn the camera off. Okay, I got it started. That's just a few threads. It's hard to try to show you the angle, but I mean, it's about 45 degrees down. You know, slanting up on the right, down as you go to the left. So it's a pain. Let's see, you know what? This is giving me a good excuse to take my tax return and get a GoPro 4. What do you think? this was on my head, it'd be a lot easier. I want to try to get the phone balanced here. It's not going to work. I wanted to show you how I did it. I took my right hand and I came in from underneath. And then if you could see my fingers, I can spin. And then I used my left hand from this angle. And I basically, there's that light again. Let me try to reposition this. I basically use my fingers to push with the left hand and twirl with the right hand. And it, you know, it took me a good 3 to 5 minutes. I'm not going to lie, it's a bitch. You know, you almost second guess if you got the right threads, but then you realize you do and you just stick with it and it'll eventually go in. So now what I'm going to do, I really should have done this in the day. Would have been easier to film. I'm going to go ahead and go back to my 19mm deep dish. Give you my pinky finger for size. Again, if that was shorter, this would be a lot easier. Now, I can twirl it in by hand as far as I'll go, and then I can use that. And the more it goes in, the more the socket's going to fit on there. But as soon as I feel resistance, I don't want to start stripping it out, you know, or beating up the corners. And I'll switch to the 19mm wrench for the final tightening. So let me go do that now. Okay, I just wanted to let you know, remember how mine was brittle, my old one, and the plastic cracked off, and now it's hard to see, but that black part in front of the brass, you know, it's probably like 1/2 of an inch. Well, with that on there, you can't fit the long deep dish socket. So either get yourself a medium-sized 19mm before you start this, or go ahead and bust the old one and then try your best to figure out how to get it back in. It would have been a lot easier if I could have fit that in there, because, you know, it's got the new fresh, you know, goop on there, the thread sealer. It doesn't go in very far by hand, so I'm gonna have to get quite a few turns, and that's gonna suck. Plus, keep in mind, when you finish, well, I don't have it on this one to show you, but the part on there that I showed you, I'll insert the picture with an arrow now. That part right there needs to be facing down and a little bit to the driver's side, so that when you go to pop that connection off in the future, you can get your fingers on there or a little flathead on there to be able to do it. Because I'm telling you, that's really, really tight otherwise. Okay, what I wanted to show you here, just to show you how tight it is with the socket, I went ahead and took the 1/4 inch ratchet off, and you could see how that comes right up here. I mean, it's just such a horrible angle, 45 degrees down, so your wrench keeps wanting to hit this, and then there's no way I'm going to be able to slide my thing back on there. I would have to definitely wiggle it back and angle it and not drop it, but it's definitely a real pain in the ass with it out so far, trying to loosen it, you know, because the more out you go, the more this slant, I mean, your wrench has to go this way, and the more out you go, the more that's, you know, hampering your working space. So I'm just going to keep playing with it. I'll let you know. Okay, I just wanted to show you, you know, even with the 12 point, you don't get a lot of articulation. So I get like where I can move it a 1/16 when the wrench is vertical, and then I got to put it horizontal and basically just get enough grip that I rotate it like a 32nd of an inch. And then I'm able to, let's see how much I move that. Then I'm able to pull it out, and then I can come back like that, and I can get another 1/16. So I'm about a good 10 minutes into it. I think I've moved it a 1/4 of an inch in. My socket still doesn't fit with the 1/4 inch ratchet. So I would highly suggest just taking off the exhaust and getting the gaskets ahead of time, unless if it's so rusted on the bolts that you don't want to get into that, but this is a bitch. even when I finally get to the point of completion, it would be nice to have that out so I could get a full rotation and really feel how snug it's going to be. Okay, I got it in. Good news is I got it in. The bad news, well, not really bad news, but my the little nipple that sticks up for the harness is on top. Basically what that means is I'm going to have to move the water housing to probably be able to unclip it. Why does that suck? Because if you just want to test it really quick in vehicle with a voltmeter, it's a lot easier to be able to go from underneath and pop it off. But I'm to a point where I'm getting real tight, and for me to have to go another 180 degrees, I don't want to get stuck. I don't want it to be where it's to the side of the heat shield. What I can tell you is I basically had to walk it this way, this way, this way, this way, almost to the end. And then I finally had enough clearance that I could keep the wrench vertical. So it's a good old pain in the ass, you know, but it's good to go. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to wire wheel the top of my thermostat housing so it's clean, which, you know, you want to do lightly because it's aluminum. Some people say, never use a wire wheel on aluminum. Just use common sense, you know, don't dig into it too hard, and it'll be okay. I've done it a million times. And then I'll probably clean up my bolts too. And I'll wire wheel the bottom of the housing at the end of this belt, which I have tucked over so it's not dripping all over, but I'll get back to that. Okay, I just want to show you inside here. Looking in the thermostat, you could see where the coolant temperature sensor protrudes. Notice how I got it a few threads in. That's good. I would have liked to have gotten it in more if I could have used, you know, a full-size ratchet on there with the exhaust pipe move, but I think it's going to be good enough. If it does leak, I'll just have to come back and tighten it. I don't think it's going to leak though, and if it does, it'll be a slow leak. I can wait until I got more time. But there you go, you got an idea. It wouldn't hurt to make sure it's at least that far. Stock thermostat's 195 degrees. Went with the Murray from Advanced. Everybody else was out of them, or they're 25 bucks or need to be special ordered. The gasket had to come separate, flat side up, beveled side down. And you'll see the little ring in there that it fits in. Okay, I got the thermostat housing all cleaned up. You may have to chase your threads with a tap if, you know, they got goofy or too much silicone or whatever. You shouldn't need silicone since it's an O-ring seal. If by any chance you got the paper gasket, go ahead and upgrade to the O-ring seal. They work pretty good. Got my water neck cleaned up. As you can see, I just bent it out of the way and it actually held it right there in a good way for me to go ahead and clean that one up too. So now I'm just going to fish it back under, put it on, put the 2 bolts in, and torque them to spec. Actually, before I do that, I'll go ahead and probably plug in that sensor just because it's easier, unless if it gets in the way of putting the water neck on, it might. I just wanted to show you. I went ahead and clipped it in. I got plenty of room to go ahead and move it. So, just makes it a little bit easier to do it now. Give you one last, try to get some light on there. Okay, that wraps it up. I put them down snug. I'm going to go ahead and use a torque wrench since I have one. It doesn't hurt. You know, there's a lot of things that as you get used to it, you can just kind of wing it, but it's an aluminum housing. If it's too tight, it can warp. If it's too loose, it won't seal. If it's too tight, you can also crush that little gasket in there. So it doesn't hurt to do it. But you could see that it's not easy to get to the top of that anymore now that the water neck's in place. But the water neck is pretty easy to get off. You know, as long as you're your bolts aren't fused in, you know, dissimilar metal bonding type issues or corrosion or rust or whatever. But all you got to do is top off the coolant, you know, leave the radiator cap off, and then just keep filling it. And as that thermostat opens up and it starts coming out of your radiator, cap it off and you're done. If you still seem to have a bubble or something and you feel like it's not, the radiator's not bled of air, you can go ahead and take that screw off and kind of do the same thing where you start it up cold, top it off, and then, you know, shut it off, and then when it starts coming out of there, you know, close it up, put that fitting back in there. Otherwise, there's my video. Sorry I don't have a GoPro 4 on my head, or I'd record it all. That's going to be Shaun4BigBlocks in the future. But thanks for watching. Hey, I had to add something here. I thought I was done, but I wasn't. And what Shaun4BigBlocks do, he shows you mistakes, right? Anybody know what I forgot? Yeah, everybody watching always does. I forgot to put the, see that hole down there? Forgot to put the bones bracket fastener back in. Which I am lucky, and I should be able to do without having to rip the water neck back off. Yeah. And then I'll ratchet it from the front. But you're not going to be able to get a torque on there unless if you really dent that thing in. But just get that one tight, you know. RFT. That's the torque spec. Really fucking tight. Decently fucking tight. How about that? You don't got to He-Man it.